she was born a male and living her life as a female. Now, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. So correct me. What is the right way to say it?
To say what?
Like, is it born a male, living your life as a female, or what is the terminology? What's the right way?
I would prefer to say it's transgendered woman or trans woman.
Trans woman. All right.
Right.
So she's a trans woman.
Yes.
At a very early age growing up, she identified she was a little bit different. No running around kicking balls, soccer, no football, no rugby, no climbing trees, like all of that stuff.
No.
What did you do with the doll?
Well, because I had two sisters, we always played house. So we would always, do the doll's hair. We would, build, our little imaginary houses, and, we played houses. I would get a t-shirt and put it on my head and pretend it was hair. And I would have, one of their baby dolls, and I would pretend to be, the parent, the mom, and make sure the baby had what it needed. And, this went on for years and years and years. And so, I mean, with some parents, they may think that it's just a phase and, they'll grow out of it. But that was just who I was, is who I identified as at the time. Yeah.
I understand that. So at that age as well, I want to get that part out of the way so we can move on to the other parts of the the ride. You felt that you were gay, or you felt that you were attracted to men as a male yourself. What point did you think, well, that's not sufficient? Like, I have to look more the part, and I have to dress the part more like a female. And what made you think that? What made you make that initial move to start dressing like a female, and not to say, okay, well, I'm gay? Because there's a lot of gay men who live their life as just gay. They just men that like men, and they don't dress. They're not transgendered. They just like men, and they live their life like that. Men. Yeah, they're just men. Right. So why wasn't that sufficient for you? Why the additional steps?
That was being gay was just never enough. Because I've always seen, I would look at myself in the mirror and just hate everything about myself. I hated everything masculinity about myself. There was nothing nobody could say to me that could deter me and say, oh, you're fine the way you are. No, that's not enough. There's somebody else that I see that needs to be revealed. And it wasn't until I was 26 years old is when I fully said, you know what? Screw the world. I have to start living for me, because I've seen people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, that transition at that age, and it's like, I don't want to live like that.
Right.
I refuse to live like that. And I was like, if I don't do this for me, then when? Because there's going to be somebody else that's going to come up behind me, that's going to need my inspiration, that's going to need my story, and say, you know what? I shouldn't wait till I'm 26. Let me talk to my parents now while I'm, 4, 5, 6 years old. And if they don't have the strength to do it then, wait until they're, 13 or 14 to have that conversation and say, Mom, Dad, listen, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully by the time, our world and our culture will be a little bit more inclusive and embracing to the conversation.
Now, we have Camille Strahan in the chat, and she's asking, were you inspired because you were the only boy amongst your siblings?
No. Me being around females, which is what I like to call an environmental factor, had absolutely nothing to do with me wanting to be a woman. At the time, a little girl, had absolutely nothing to do with that.
Right.
No.
Okay. Do you think that, and we had a debate about a couple months ago on that topic, do you think that you were born gay? Or is there such a thing as being born more of the other sex, or is it something that is learned behavior?
Well, because back then research didn't really show these types of diverse genders.
Right.
And now, however, because science has evolved so much and more people have evolved, now being trans and being gay is actually being studied. And so now we can actually get to a scientific clause and say, hey, yes, there is a gene strand in the DNA that can alter a person's sexuality and also their gender. And also some of the things that I've learned just in my own research and looking at documentaries is that sometimes the mother can give off during pregnancy, during those 9 months of incubating, can actually give off a little bit more estrogen. Not that it's intentional,
right,
but that she gives off just a little bit more estrogen if, she's carrying a male sometimes in her womb.
Right.
And so sometimes that takes that plays a part in that as well. So it's not that, the parents did anything wrong. It's just that during those stages of development, that's just what happens.
Right. So much questions coming in there, but one comment that just came through, I just recognized from Patricia Carut. She said, "Sorry to say, but you were born a man, and you should have stayed a man. If you were born, you had a dick or a penis, not a vagina." I'm sure you get this all the time. How do you
I respond
to questions like that, or statements like that?
Well, I just tell them this right here. Everybody is allowed their own personal views about that. However, to not negate my experience and how I feel, it's important that I remain in my lane when it comes to comments like that, because like I tell them, there are people that's born with both male and female anatomies.
Right.
So, do you discredit them or do you discard them because they were born with both? No. So regardless of whether I have a vagina or whether I have a penis, that's just a part of who I am. But it doesn't mean I should have remained there, because had I remained there, then you probably wouldn't see me today. I probably would have taken my life had I not made the choice to go ahead and transition from male to
that's interesting.
female.
That's interesting. That's a very interesting statement. So you're saying that you felt so locked up, arrested inside your own body, that was you inside of you trying to get out, and if you stayed in there, you probably would have taken your life.
I probably would have taken my own life. I've tried cutting myself several times. I've tried overdosing on pills. A lot of this stuff I've just started talking about because my parents didn't know a lot of this,
right?
Because nobody was ever around when I would attempt suicide. And so if it had not been for me saying, hold up, wait a minute, there's got to be another way to handle this. And so now I'm in a space now where I can actually talk to all people from all spectrums of life and actually share my testimony. It has actually saved people from actually taking their own lives because they thought something was wrong with them because they have never seen another transgender person. They may have experienced the same thing, but actually seeing another transgender person go from being suicidal to being free,
right,
has set them free. So that's what I say to that.
What makes you free? What makes you feel free?
Having no fear about absolutely anything. No fear. I took that from Nina Simone because she was asked the same question. She said, the question was asked, what is freedom? And she said, what freedom means to me is no fear. And I feel the same way. You cannot be afraid to be who you are, regardless of what people may say, do, or even think.
But okay, let me just cut you there. Let's take a pin right there. You said you're not afraid to be who you are, right?
I'm not.
But a lot of people might contradict that and say, well, you were born a man, so that's who you are, right? Did God make a mistake somewhere in the process?
No. I've said this. God is actually transgender. And I say that because God understands the duality of masculinity and femininity.
Right.
Because if we are all, children of God, like we're supposed to be, and we're all made in His image, guess what? They're male and they're female here. And if we're all made in God's image, that should tell people that the Spirit of God may not have a gender, but the actual physical element of God may understand and embody both male and female genders. Yeah.
Interesting way to look at it. And of course, when people would judge you or talk to you, they would probably always resort to the Bible.
Oh, absolutely.
Pastors and priests and everyone, they would say what was done. It is completely wrong.
It's immoral.
It's immoral. You would hear all this other stuff, abomination, all of this stuff, destructive to the world, all of this stuff. How do you deal with statements that come across your timeline as it relates to that?
I tell people this: if you first of all, because my parents have been in the church for a long time. Me and my sisters, we went to private Christian school. So, we went to, we was in church and in the Bible 8 days a week.
Right.
So there wasn't a time where we wasn't in the Bible. And Paul actually said this. He said, no person can live to the letter of the law, speaking to the Bible.
Right.
And I tell people this right here. Jesus, who came to rewrite the law, which he did, he gave us one commandment, and that's to love each other. He said, love yourself as you will love your neighbor. That's it. He never said who your neighbor would be. He didn't say if your neighbor was going to be black, brown, gay, straight, serial killer. He didn't say any of that. He said just love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right. That's it. And so we have to embody that, and that's what I say to people that call themselves Christians. If you're not showing and you're not being the example of what it means to walk like Christ or be in the love of Christ, then guess what? You're not really a Christian.
Right.
So don't use the Bible as a tactic to disassemble and oppress me, because you can't do that. Because when you're free and you're free from religion and you're more on a spiritual high, then you know who you really are. Because religion for me is natural. Being on a spiritual high is where God and Jesus dwells. So that's how I feel. That's how I look at that.
Okay, let's talk about society. And let's talk about the logistics of society and how society functions and works. You watch Dave Chappelle? All right. Good.
I did.
All right, good. So he made, for those of you who don't know who Dave Chappelle is, he's a comedian. He just had a Netflix special. I looked at it. I thought it was funny. Dave Chappelle, he has his ways. He's a funny comedian. But he did make some points there that I'm going to throw into my ignorant segment to bring towards you. So being transgender is basically asking the world, the wider community, and everybody else to accept you for the way how you feel.
We're not. First of all, I already know the world isn't going to accept me. And one of the things that I learned early on is that you can't force people to accept you. Right. You can help people understand who you are, and you give them the option to say yes or no if I want to be in your life.
Right.
And so I think that's something that a lot of us in the transgender community are starting to take on. We're not asking anybody to accept us fully.
Right.
At all.
I understand.
We just want you to know that we're visible, we're present, we're here.
Right.
And we just want to live our lives day to day, go to work, go to school, have, raise our families, do everything else like normal people, because that's what we are. Because if we all cut each other right now, we're all bleeding the same color, red.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I'll come back to the Dave Chappelle piece in a little bit, but another question that just came to mind is, if a heterosexual male, right, meet and fall in love with a transgender female like yourself, is that heterosexual male considered to be gay?
No.
Even if that transgender female still has her male parts, she didn't have no surgery, all she do is basically dress the part, act the part. Is that man considered a gay man?
No, he's not considered as a gay man.
So if I for today I went into a party and I met someone who just decided to put on female clothes for that time, for that day, and dress as a female, just as a sport, just for fun. And I met in that party, and for somehow that person had sexual intercourse with that particular person who was just doing it for fun. Is that person considered gay?
Well, I think so that's a twofold question. First of all, a person being transgender, first of all, isn't a choice. This is how I live. This is my lifestyle.
Right.
So I don't take this on and I don't take it off.
Right.
That other person gets that luxury to put it on and put it off when they want to. And we have had instances where we have had males that identify as being gay, but they just love putting on hair, nails, makeup, the heels, the whole nine, and they identify as just being gay.
Right.
So if a man has intercourse with them, a heterosexual male have sex with them, that doesn't necessarily mean that heterosexual male is gay, especially if it was just a one-time situation to where he didn't know. Because a lot of times people may say, all people know. Well, yeah, they may know, and then there are some people that just don't know. And so you can't hold that against them. Now, what I say to the to a lot of people is this right here. You have to understand the difference between a person just wearing a wig and a dress, and then actually a person living their life as a transgender woman, and what separates the two is what we call HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. And so you have to, that's where the process is, where you go through a doctor who's an endocrinologist, and you have to go to a psychiatrist who has to sign off, and this was my process, where they had to sign off on saying that yes, you do have gender dysphoria, and now being diagnosed with that, the endocrinologist can now prescribe the proper medication, which is estradiol, and can put and I've been on that for 3-4 years now, and now you're able to see the more my breast development, and the widening of the hips, and the feminization of the skin, the softness of it, the hair loss, and all of that.
Right.
So the process is the difference between those people like myself who don't get the luxury of taking it on and off, and those people that are just doing it for sport that do get to take it off.
But it's about acceptance. Generally, it's about that way how you feel, and it's about not necessarily asking for the world to accept you, but this is how you feel, and people should respect the way how you feel.
Right. At the end of the day, one of the conversations that I always have and that I tell people, we may not agree on everything, but at least you have to respect the other person's point of view.
Right.
Because everybody wants to be respected. Nobody ever wants to be disrespected. That's the worst feeling that you can ever feel, is being disrespected, especially by your own people.
Right.
And so it's already hard enough to get society to wake up and say, okay, yeah, we do have transgender people here and they're dying at an alarming rate. However, we do need to come to the table and say, what can we do to fix this? Because I think there is space enough for everybody at the table to sit down and have a well thought out conversation about who we are. And I think that's one of the conversation pieces that's missing.
Right.
And so I believe that's why we're having the largest transgender march this weekend, September 28th, the Trans March on DC, to show that we are here, that we are visible, that we do have a voice. And we want people to understand that way, and it's not being forced, but at least understand that we're human too.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're a human race.
Yeah.
And society is the one that has caused all of this division.
Okay, let me ask you a Dave Chappelle question. Back to the Dave Chappelle thing. If today, tomorrow, and LeBron James, you saw that one? I'm gonna go there. Sorry, LeBron, but hey, Dave Chappelle started.
We love you, LeBron.
We love you, LeBron. Do your thing over there, right? So if LeBron James is one of the top players for the Lakers, I think he's back with the Lakers, or wherever he plays, he moves around a lot. So he scores a lot in the NBA.
Yes.
And if today, tomorrow, LeBron James say, you know what, I have for all my life, similar to your story, you know, I feel like I identify more with being a female. So he went to the whole endocrinologist type thing. He get all of that stuff. Then he get the female treatment that made him a little more broad and all that other stuff. So that means that he no longer could play with the NBA. He now have to play with the women's NBA and score like 500 points per game. Is he or should he be? Is it or should it be just accepted or respected that LeBron James would make that decision and transfer over to the women's NBA and be accepted as a woman?
Well, so first of all, like I was explaining the process, there's a process when it comes to actually having legal paper documents saying that you have done everything you need to do to be identified no longer as a male but as a female. Because I have my paperwork, is right over here. Right. And so
he get his papers. He get his papers.
Oh, he got everything.
He got his papers. Yeah.
So I feel at this point, because what people have to realize is when you get on these hormones, and for trans men it's different. So when you get on hormones as a transgender woman, the muscle breakdown of it, so you're not as strong as you used to be. You know, there's so much that happens with the body, and then especially with him being older.
So are you saying that women are weaker than men?
I'm not going to say women are weaker than men, because there are times and there are instances where, because basketball is a physical sport, so you're constantly working out and you're building muscle strength all day.
Right. So
I would never say that, but it has been said, you know, throughout, you know, society that because women's body frames are a little bit are smaller, than the male body frame. And so that doesn't mean that the female is just weaker. It's just the frame of the body is just different. But what I want people to understand this is that when a transgender woman is transitioning, that during the process of them taking HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, there is a softening of the tissue and there is a breakdown of the muscle mass. Now, if a person is in the gym constantly working out, of course that muscle mass is going to be there. It's going to be noticeable. However, if a transgender woman doesn't, you're definitely going to see a diminishing of the body.